With that, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Chernobyl recovery. Chernobyl has become a byword for catastrophe. No one doubts that the immediate ecological effects of the Chernobyl disaster were devastating. But Chernobyl's exclusion zone isn't a radioactive desert. More than 3 decades ago, the world looked on in horror when the Unit 4 reactor at the Chernobyl NPP caught fire. Radiation is scary, conjuring up images of atomic bombs, mutation, and cancer. But we don't forget that we are all continuously exposed to natural radioactivity from soil, rocks, and space. Chernobyl tourists will receive a dose of radiation during a one-day tour, not exceed 3 to 4 microsieverts. 3 to 4% of nuclear power plant safety norms in EU, which is equivalent to around 4 hours on an intercontinental flight. How long until Chernobyl will be completely safe? It depends on what part of Chernobyl you're talking about. There are a lot of scientific publications where you can find such numbers as 300 to 800 years, but the highly publicized number is 20,000 years. That refers specifically to Elephant's Foot, the highly radioactive remains of the reactor itself. In a broader sense, it's harder to say for sure how long it will be until Chernobyl is completely safe. Experts estimate anywhere from 20 years to several hundred years because the contamination levels are not consistent in the surrounding area. Despite misleading headlines, Chernobyl is recovering. Back in 2006, the World Health Organization identified that the social and psychological impacts of Chernobyl on people have been greater than the health effects from radiation. Chernobyl costed $700 billion. Huge efforts have been ongoing to maintain and keep safe the Chernobyl area in Ukraine since the infamous nuclear disaster that took place on April 26, 1986. Over the next 35 years, Chernobyl's cost grew to $700 billion. The cost was due to the damage directly caused by the accident, the cost of sealing off the reactor, the creation of an exclusion zone of 30 kilometers around the power plant, the relocation waste cleanup and disposal of radioactive waste, the monitoring of environmental radiation levels, and research to find out how to make contaminated food safe. The crashed helicopter was found in 2017 during the dismantling of the flooring of the post-accident light roof of the engine room of Unit Number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Was found a part of the tail with broken elements of the steering propeller of the Mi-8 helicopter, which crashed in 1986 during the Chernobyl disaster response. According to the Chernobyl SSE, on the evening of October 2nd, 1986, during the spilling of bonding adhesive over CHNPP Unit 4, Vladimir Vorobyov's helicopter caught the cable with its blades due to the absence of a high-altitude crane on the cable and fell to the ground. All crew members died as a result of the fall. The most radioactive places in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Chernobyl and radiation, two words which have been linked for decades. Today, you do not have to worry about visiting Chernobyl because the places which are visited by tourists are decontaminated and cleaned. But there are several places which are still dangerously radioactive, and visiting them is not recommended, completely prohibited, or allowed with protective clothes and radiation specialists. Pripyat Hospital, number 126. Red Forest. Radioactive graphite claw. Basement of Jupiter plant in Pripyat. And room number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Pripyat Hospital, number 126. Everyone has already heard about the basement of the Pripyat Hospital, number 126. This is the place where all the clothes and accessories of the firefighters and employees which were fighting with the fire at the power plant are laying. Pripyat Hospital was nursing these people right after the disaster back in 1986. The firefighters and other liquidators got so much radiation, they died within a year from radiation sickness. Their clothes are, however, still there, buried and emitting dangerous doses of surely fueled by the boxes with the mysterious, highly radioactive gray powder and an underground laboratory full of chemicals in the basement. Control Room 4 is open for visits. For decades, the tourists who did come to the Chernobyl exclusion zone were only permitted to observe abandoned villages, the city of Pripyat, Chernobyl town, Duga radar, and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant outside. Those areas aren't considered dangerous anymore. In fact, you'd probably receive a higher dose of radiation from the flight over. But the infamous Reactor 4, where the explosion occurred, remained closed to everyone except researchers, cleanup workers, and a few journalists. Until now. Closed for over 30 years, it is now safe and open for you to peek into the most epic part of the Chernobyl story. A place where time stopped the very moment of April 26, when Reactor 4 exploded and changed the history of mankind and the destiny of millions of people. From 2020, everyone has the unique chance to dive to the very place where Anatoly Dyatlov commanded his colleagues, and where the AC5 scram button was pushed too late. It is the most radioactive place you can legally visit in the Chernobyl zone, with the absolute assurance it is safe. The Control Room 4 sits under the new containment arc, but outside of the original sarcophagus that contained the radiation of the reactor itself. Visitors have to wear protective suits, helmets, and masks, and are limited to 5 minutes inside the room. Afterward, they will undergo 2 mandatory radiology tests to gauge their exposure. The Wormwood Star Prophecy. The Star Wormwood Memorial Complex was built in 2010-2011 to the 25th anniversary of the Chernobyl accident. The sculpture, created by Ukrainian artist Anatoly Haidamaka, who is also known for his artistic design of the National Chernobyl Museum in Kiev. Monument of the Third Angel not only honors the people who risked it all to combat the Chernobyl catastrophe, it also adds a biblical edge to the events. wormwood star would bring on doomsday. The name Chernobyl is the same as one of the Ukrainian names for Artemisia vulgaris, mugwort, or common wormwood. Because of the reference to wormwood, people began speculating that the Bible predicted the disaster. Chernobyl wild horses. After a nuclear disaster that happened 35 years ago, the Chernobyl exclusion zone became one of the wildest places in Europe. The area is occupied by diverse, including rare and endangered species, making the place unique. At the time of the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, there were no horses in Chernobyl. It was not until 1998 when the first 31 arrived in the exclusion zone. They were 10 males and 18 females from the Askania Nova Nature Reserve in southern Ukraine, and 3 males from a local zoo. After high mortality associated with the process of transfer and release, the high birth rate brought the population to 65 in just 5 years. Intense protection measures have allowed that just 20 years after their arrival in Chernobyl zone, their number has multiplied by 5. Chernobyl fires. Wildfires are not a new phenomenon to the Chernobyl zone ecosystem. Some last several days, others almost a week, but none of them were as terrible and dangerous as the ones experienced in 2020. April 4th, the day when the largest wildfire in the history of the Chernobyl exclusion zone began. Chernobyl wildfires were from the 4th of April and lasted until the 15th of April, destroying everything in its path. The 13th of April was the most stressful day because fire reached the territories of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Thanks to firefighters and fire protection, Chernobyl NPP wasn't damaged. The Chernobyl dogs. Hundreds of dogs inhabit the Chernobyl exclusion zone that covers a 30-kilometer radius around Chernobyl in northern Ukraine. They are the descendants of the pets left behind in 1986, when residents of Pripyat fled the explosion at the Chernobyl NPP. They were forced to abandon their pets. During the process of eliminating the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster, Soviet soldiers tried to kill as many of the animals as possible to stop them from spreading radiation, but they couldn't get to all of them. Thankfully, many survived despite high levels of radiation in their fur, the harsh Ukrainian winters, and scarcity of food. 35 years later, the offspring of these brave animals still live in the exclusion zone and receive exclusion zone. According to official rules, giving birth and raising children in the 30-kilometer exclusion zone of the power plant is strictly prohibited. 13 years after the atomic disaster, in one of the more non-existent villages, was born Marika Savenko. Marika's parents refused to leave their homes and evacuate along with everyone. Lydia Savenko was already 47 years old when she realized that she was pregnant. Doctors did not agree with this fact and argued that Lydia had advanced cancer. Their surprise knew no bounds when a woman, after 9 months, gave birth to a completely healthy baby girl. Problems for Marika and her family began immediately after the birth. The law prohibits giving birth to children in the exclusion zone, and this case was the only one during its existence. Local authorities did everything possible to hide the birth of the child. The Savenko family was asked to leave, disappear, dissolve, but it was all in vain. The girl's parents were not going to leave their home. Savenko left their homes only when the girl was 7 years old. There are officially no children in the 30-kilometer zone, which means there are no schools either. So they had to move closer to the benefits of civilization in order to ensure the future of their child. Now, Marika Savenko is 22 years old. She has no health problems. She does not associate herself with the exclusion zone and does not believe that she is unique. Chernobyl's elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is the nickname given to a large mass of corium and other materials formed underneath the power plant. Discovered in December of 1986, it is presently located in a steam distribution corridor underneath the remains of reactor number 4. It remains an extremely radioactive object. However, its danger has decreased over time due to the decay of its radioactive components. At the time of its discovery, about 8 months after formation, radioactivity near the elephant's foot was approximately 80 grays per hour, delivering a 50-50 lethal dose of radiation, which is 4.5